The next one is Sally Kortekaas, is it?
Yes, Kortekaas. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Sally Kortekaas and I'm just a resident of Christchurch. Just put my glasses on. I've written a lot of notes and I'm probably going to have to process some of it because I didn't realise it was quite as time specific. And what I'm concerned about the rating proposal is that it's good. It's going to possibly result in some sites being tidied up, and I can't imagine why it's objected to when I don't think mowing and clearing a bit of rubble is all that expensive. But anyway, what my point is, has the council considered what it's really saying to the owners of the unused sites is, you are welcome to speculate on our inner city land as long as you do not make it too obvious. Council has said that one option considered was to use site value rating, not CIV, on the specific inner city areas, but legislation required that the entire city would have to move to site value rating, and that was not possible. Since I wrote my submission, I found a New Zealand-based report, the Productivity Commission Final Report on Local Government Funding and Financing, published in November 2019. It is very explicit in its support for site value rating instead of CIV, and they obviously mean for entire cities, not specific districts only. Most specifically, on page 193, and I quote, they say, it is worth noting that 71% of councils levy their general rate on capital value rather than land value. This is not helpful to encouraging property development. This is because rates based on capital value tax development. By switching to land value rating, which is possible under current law except for Auckland Council, these councils would increase the tax burden on vacant relative to developed land without causing any distortion. Indeed, such a switch to land value taxation would improve productivity and economic efficiency more generally, unquote. What the council is proposing is a kind of refundable vacant land tax. The same Productivity Commission recommended against implementation of a vacant land tax because a broad-based site value rating would have better results without unfair, unintended consequences. Site value rating would also include the sites with derelict buildings, which are not included in the council's current proposal. I wanted to find measured empirical data on the outcomes of a change from CIV to site value rating, but I couldn't find anything that was New Zealand-based, so I resorted to the work I found from Prosper Australia in Victoria, Australia, and I linked the report to the submission and also another one. And the data in there indicate that the change encourages development. Like just from page 27 of the most recently linked report, it says a majority of almost all categories of property users except vacant land paid lower rates under the site value, including those with lowest property value on one set of figures for a range of properties. With that in mind, it is possible the majority of Christchurch ratepayers would actually prefer site value rating on the basis of what they would have to pay. CIV rating encourages holding land in a poorly used condition for capital gain. If the other central city landowners and council had all chosen not to use the land, the city would still be devastated in the central area and donut-shaped with a hole in the middle. The land values of the centre and the entire city would be depressed. Instead, the council and many private landowners are developing a beautiful city and lifting the land values generally of the entire city. But the speculators get the capital gain due to the efforts of others and do not have to contribute as much in rates, while those that made the land value rise by developing their properties pay higher rates, and that's just not fair. And the same applies to the suburbs. I've lived in Queensland where site value rating has been used since 1890. On my house at the Sunshine Coast, the rates were about $3,000 per year and would have been the same if the land had been vacant. There is no way I would hold a vacant site if it cost me $3,000 a year. But if the rate was much lower, it just might be a rational decision to land bank. Well-located land is a very good performing asset class, especially if you are wealthy enough not to need cash flow from the investment until it is sold. Do Christchurch suburbs have a lot of vacant land being held on that basis by people making rational investment decisions in the CIV rating environment? To what extent are the other ratepayers in the CIV system subsidising speculation in vacant land? What is the effect on urban sprawl and council infrastructure costs from pressure to build outlying subdivisions? How much is it contributing to unaffordable housing? The vacant derelict sites reduce the function and aesthetics of Christchurch. Site value rating is not only a proven rating system that encourages development, as demonstrated in history, it is recommended by the New Zealand Productivity Commission, an independent Crown organisation supporting the overall well-being of New Zealanders. I hope the Council will give further consideration to using site value rating for the entire city.
Thank you very much. I mean, that would be music to my ears, that presentation. If you have it, could you submit the actual, what you've just read out?
Oh, yes.
In addition to what you've provided as the submission, but it would be very useful to have your sort of detailed perspective on that. Because, I mean, I agree. I mean, I despair of Productivity Commission reviews that are ignored and then blah, 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 the whole thing. We couldn't make that change now, but what's so depressing is that this was something that Raf Manji pushed for when he was here on the council. It was his desire to see us progressing that, and it was not. I mean, I guess timing's everything. Just in terms of the work that has to go into what is a special consultative procedure with the public, which requires in-depth explanation and working through all of the issues, which is why your submission's so helpful, and then the implementation. So it does. There is a timing issue in terms of having the consultation, seeing what the general public see about it, but it requires a substantial education program as well to explain the benefits. So. But we could certainly be in a position to make a recommendation to the next council in terms of progressing that. And I think that Councillor Manji former Councillor Manji would be so excited to hear that.
Could I just add one thing on after that? Is that I was struggling to find any New Zealand-based information, so I phoned up Prosper Australia in Victoria and asked, do you have any New Zealanders who would be able to tell me something? And they contacted Tim Helm. He's living in Wellington at the moment, and he's got an economics consultancy service. He's actually been in the past working for New Zealand Treasury and Victorian State Treasury, and he's got a PhD on land value tax and a master's degree in economics. And if you just Google for him, it comes up. Yeah. And he would be able to help, I'm sure. I've never met him. It's not a personal recommendation, but he was very helpful to me in sending me that productivity report.
That's great. Thank you very much for a very detailed and helpful submission. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you. And